Hey guys, it's Kelley, and in this installment, I want to talk about how subtle little nonverbal gestures can really take your character to the next level. About 90% of our communication is nonverbal. So being able to pull some of the little gestures and maybe even little tics that your character might have, and being able to put them in subtly with your character can just absolutely take your performance from, oh, that's interesting, to, oh wow, what did she just do there? Okay. So I'm going to use some examples that other actors have used and used extremely successfully, and just give you something to think about while you're doing your own monologues or your own characters within scene work, or even if you're coming in and developing an ongoing character that you might be jumping in and doing for improv. So one of the first people, speaking of like comedies and improv, that I want to talk about is the show The Office. I absolutely adore this show, and I think it's probably one of the best ways to really learn how to perform on camera. On top of which, a lot of the people who happen to be in the office are improvisers, so I have a special place in my heart for them. But one of the standouts, in addition to Steve Carell as Michael Scott, is Leslie David Baker, who plays Stanley the Manly. And what I love about Stan is that every time he either feels agitated, or he thinks somebody's giving him BS, or he's actually spewing BS, he'll blink his eyes really quickly and just kind of look at you and blink his eyes. And for me, that's always a little bit of a tell that Stanley maybe doesn't believe what he's saying, or he definitely doesn't believe something like what Michael or Dwight might be saying. Steve Carell is also another brilliant, there's so many brilliant actors on that show, but Steve Carell's performance, and why Michael Scott I think is so endearing to people, is he's relatable. In the first season, The Office I think had a little trouble finding its footing. It kind of wanted to have the cynicism that the British version did, and it didn't really click with American audiences. But then I will tell you, if you really want to watch the episode that sent The Office over the top, the George Foreman grill one was hilarious, and that was probably one of the most downloaded episodes on iPods back in the day when you could do that. But it's a brilliant example of how the group came together, and you start to see more of Michael's quirkiness beyond being kind of like this nasty boss. He's just this guy that wants to be liked so much, and the more he wants to be liked, the further he's pushing people away from it. So, when he's looking directly in the camera and he's doing his, ideas and things like that on how to manage people, he'll usually kind of look up, or he'll kind of look to the side. So that could mean that he's lying or that he's genuinely thinking. But, a lot of times when I see Michael start to turn to the side, he's really trying to think and pontificate and pass on some sort of pearl of wisdom that he thinks is just the ultimate in management. If you watch The Office, Jim will always do, when he doesn't believe something that's going on camera, he'll just kind of do his take like, okay, are you guys seeing this too? And it's those little subtleties within all these characters, which is what makes it a great ensemble piece. Now, there's other actors in other ensemble pieces. For instance, Jennifer Aniston as Rachel in Friends. It wasn't until I was watching another YouTube video and a YouTuber pointed this out, but her character used to do so you may walk in and want to make your presence known and do something more like but for her it's more subtle. It's a nervous characteristic, and I'm not really sure if that might have been just a nervous tick that Jennifer Aniston had, or it was just something that she attributed to Rachel and they kind of merged and became one. But if you do watch Friends, you'll start to pick that up, that Rachel will be going and sometimes it's also this little bit, she'll move her hair, especially when we were the Rachel flip, doing a lot of that. So there's those sort of subtleties that, again, can make your characters so much richer. Harrison Ford has got the finger pointing. And you know that you are SOL when Harrison Ford looks at you and starts to point his finger. It's a bad thing. He can say F you with just his finger and not even have to drop the F-bomb. And you need to back off, because it's like, okay, Han Solo, I'm backing off right now. Wow. Robert De Niro's got the Robert De Niro scowl. So you can, kind of take a look at where, again, that may have been an actor's tick, but he ended up bringing that into other characters. Like, for instance, I get mistaken for Ann Coulter a lot, and one of her tells us the more agitated she gets, the more she kind of pushes her hair over to the side. So, you know, she might say, okay, I have a joke. How many liberals does it take to change a light bulb? 0. Because according to liberals, you can't change a light bulb. A light bulb wants to change on its own. Oh, that is really helpful. Why don't we just all take bong hits and sing Kumbaya? So that's my Ann Coulter, thank you. So, I mean, it's those little things, but, you know, when I'd watch her in interviews, whenever she'd want to answer something or think, she would touch her hair. And it's not in kind of like sometimes people will say that's a romantic way. No, for her, it is pure agitation. So you can have those little gestures and people will get that, you know, if you move your hair back. For Kristin Stewart, and this is a tick I have to watch for myself too, it's licking your lips, the side of your lips, and doing this when you're thinking. Well, that's her thing now. Use your phone to observe and photograph yourself and see, okay, what am I really doing here? And you can do that in the mirror and just set up your phone and just see, you know, what you start to pick up. And it can really, again, transform what you're doing. Jim Carrey, again, could be over the top, Dumb and Dumber, and, you know, so many other kind of movies. But if you really want to see, again, another subtle and very beautifully nuanced movie, The Truman Show, that he did way back when, is another really gorgeous example of being subtle and taking some of those bigger traits and then narrowing them down and being able to do some really amazing things. The last set of monologues that we were coaching, one of the young ladies had written her monologue and she was a serial killer. And she just kept on, you know, like doing this. And then I don't think she even realized it, but there was a vein in the middle of her forehead. And the whole time she was talking, the vein was throbbing. And this was not special effects. It may have been nerves or whatever, but I was like, oh, that's really cool. Because, like, she knows she's killed people and her vein in the middle of her forehead is throbbing. And that's just making her just that much more scary. So not all of us can do that. But, you know, some of us can throw the hair back. Serial killers, a lot of times, they can be very subtly nuanced by going right before they kill somebody. If you're playing a serial killer, maybe there's that just one little thing. A lot of times serial killers get a lot of tension in their neck for whatever reason. And rather than screaming and going, I'm the crazy guy, the scarier thing is when they lean forward and they tell you how much they're going to enjoy killing you. So that, to me, you know, if you look at Hannibal Lecter, he's a scary guy, and a lot of times he didn't raise his voice, you know. He was just freaking amazing. If you've been watching Tiger King, that real character, he has a tendency to scrunch his nose, so I don't know if that's a crystal meth thing or that's just a nervous tic that he's always had, but it's fascinating for me to watch. So sometimes documentaries are also great things to watch because you do see people acting a certain way, being a certain way. Carol Bastin in that, she laughs really uncomfortably. So look at that. Oh, you tried to kill me. Another one is looking at pilots of series and then looking at the characters as they progress. So the pilot of The Office versus Michael Scott in season 2 or 3 and Michael Scott at the point that he's leaving the show and how much he's progressed. Because in the beginning, Michael Scott was not that likable, and then by the end, you're just sobbing when he goes. You don't want him to go. You love him that much. Modern Family, same way. How much did Cam and Mitchell's relationship really change? You know, Jay and Gloria, how much did they change? Phil and Claire, how much did their relationship change over the time? And the kids definitely, I mean, they grew up. So how different were they from the beginning of the pilot just because they grew up 10 years later to where they ended up? So anyway, I hope that this has been helpful. And what I want your takeaway to be for right now is go through a monologue, again, any kind of monologue that you'd want to do or a scene, and think about what sort of little character trait that you could put in there that might be sort of a little bit of a tell on your character. I'm so glad that you guys joined me this time around. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them below. And thanks again, and I'll see you next time.